Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's thewfia.org, and become a member today.
Hi, this is Bob Smith. You might remember me from my years at Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. Well, now I've started a brand new podcast called The Outdated Wrestling Hour. Yes, we're going to take a whimsical look back at the wrestling figures, stars, and trends from years gone by. We're talking 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and a whole lot more. There's going to be laughs, there's going to be fun, there's going to be action, you name it. Please tune in for The Outdated Wrestling Hour wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, everybody, and welcome to the PWZ. I want to welcome back a very special guest, a guy that is probably, in the history of this show, 3-4 years that we've been running, probably one of my favorite guests. I finally got to meet this gentleman in person about 2 weeks ago in the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame as he inducted referee Richard Lannon, legend, stand-up comedian, professional wrestler, all-arounder, the real deal, Joel Davis. What's going on?
Hey, Rick. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me back, you know.
Yeah,
I know that. Yeah, man. I'm back second time. I couldn't believe it when you said a lot of your viewers and listeners loved me and loved the last show. And I was like, shit, I was mostly a heel out in Connecticut. I thought they hated me. But I guess some people like the heel sometimes. But, you know, again, you've got to remember, it's a gimmick. It's a work. It's a sport. You know, like they say, some of the heels are the best guys really in real life. And just so you know, I do know you're the professor, even though it doesn't say it on the screen.
I am. Well, I don't know. I've kind of taken that title away from myself, to be honest with you, because if you were there for the Hall of Fame, which you were, they definitely introduced Tom Burke as the professor. And no disrespect to Tom Burke. I think that guy knows everything. And a great guy, great friend, and friend of the show. So I'm going to let him have it because he is that kind of a legend. So
he's actually the psychologist, aka no, seriously. Tom Burke is not the professor. You are Professor Rick Del Santo. I've heard Tom Burke being referred to as a pro wrestling historian. Tom Burke has also been referred to as a psychologist and also a gynecologist.
And I got to tell you, man, I've met him now several times in person, probably one of the greatest people I've ever met, one of the kindest people I've ever met. And I've been up to his, what do they call it? The
dungeon?
What the hell they call it? The dungeon, not dungeon, but the, whatever it is, where he's got all his stuff. I viewed his collection. I got to tell you, man. Yeah, pretty much his museum in that little office that he's got there. And the shrine, that's what they refer to it as. And I got to tell you, man, it is a great time. And there's so much history sitting in that one room. So many great pictures to sit there and look at. I'm telling you, if you guys are into professional wrestling history, it's definitely something worth checking out. I promise you.
Yeah. I know Tom. Tom's a good guy, you know. So, New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, you know, big event by Joe Bruin once again. The guy keeps on outdoing himself every year. Yeah. People don't realize all the work it is to put something together like that. I mean, this one here was 3 years in the making. I have a lot of respect for Joe Bruin, utmost respect for Joe Bruin. It's like, I got a lot of respect for you, Rick, and there's certain individuals that you get to know him personally, and you get a little more respect for him. Like, you know, and Joe Bruin, I spoke to Joe Bruin not too long ago. And, I seen him at the Hall of Fame, of course, and we spoke briefly. I just told him, I said, Joe, I remember you knocking down the door just trying to get a ring announcer gig, hanging around, in your late teens. And he paid his dues. And see, that's the kind of guy that you want to run something like this, big ceremony. I mean, our good friend, Big Rick, also known as Big Daddy, the Guardian of Chaos. He had gotten into the Hall of Fame. He was there that night. Mad Dog DC Drake, another legend. Barry Horowitz, who worked as Stretcher Jack Hart, Barry Hutch, Florida champion. I mean, you don't just get these guys to come in, if you're not respected and known. And then he has a big fan fest the next day. Joe Bruin is a real respectful guy, big event. But since we mentioned,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just want to say, but since we mentioned the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, I'm gonna give everybody a piece of wisdom and a piece of advice. Again, Rick, you know me, Rick. We get to know each other personally, but we've known each other, not known personally, but you've known of me for a few years. I come out of Kowalski's in early 1991, and like I said on the microphone that night, I have paid my dues, and I respect the business and love the business just like as much as the next guy. But I also respect the business, and everybody needs to respect the business and the sport, and especially at a ceremony like that. So not getting into anything. I'm not going to get all worked up about it or angry or anything like that. But I'm just going to say the facts. Everyone has to remember something. If you're involved in pro wrestling or anything in life, I'm in stand-up comedy now. It happens in stand-up comedy. It happens in pro wrestling. It happens in life in general, Rick. And I think this might hit home with a lot of your viewers and listeners. And I mean this from the gut, soul, and heart. And I know what I'm talking about. I'm a grown man. I've done a lot in my life. I really have. I'm including I was a motivational speaker for a while. I'm in stand-up comedy now. I'm a former big promoter in the sports collectible business for 18 years. You don't do that by mistake. In the pro wrestling business from 91, still involved in pro wrestling. Did a shot for Showcase Pro Wrestling in March of this year with Chris Blackheart and Vega, two stand-up gentlemen guys right there.
Yep.
So I'm still involved, and no matter what happens, I'll always want to die real, and I will die real. If you like me or you don't like me, it's just I'm always going to keep it real. So when I say this, I'm just being real. In general, people just got to remember something. Don't always believe what you hear. Don't always believe what is said. And remember, when you're a follower, I've never been a follower, Rick. Even back in the day when I got my first pair of boxing gloves when I was 10 years old, I was always the leader. That was just me. But I always treated everybody equally as the leader. And even when I did supervising gigs, promoting gigs, what I did, Rick, is I kept everybody equal. And it kept everybody involved and everybody wanted, because a lot of people, all they need is a chance in life sometimes to get a chance. And it builds up your self-esteem, and it's good confidence, and it's healthy for you. So what I'm getting at, and this is my point that I'm trying to make, is don't always listen to the so-called leaders that you're a follower, and you may listen to what they have to say with, maybe a particularly nasty room or their thought or their opinion. Because when you start listening, you to these other people that can be negative, especially at an event like the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, it can really be not a good situation. It can be one of those situations that these people that are listening and following and just going with whatever's being said by whoever's the production manager, so to speak, of this bullshit, you're weak. You're weak in your mind. Be yourself. Be strong. A lot of times when you don't know somebody personally, when you get to know them personally, 9 out of 10 times, they're really a good person. Everybody's going through something in life. I don't give a shit what it is. But what I'm saying is be careful of what you say and what you do. Defamation of character can be a serious shit. Okay? So that's all I'm saying. And anybody that knows what I'm talking about is going to know what I'm talking about. Okay? That's all I'm saying. I am a gentleman. I consider myself professional at all costs. I always get up there and do the best I can no matter what I do in life. And that's the way that I'll always be, Rick. So my point to conclude, what I'm trying to say is don't ever listen to the guy that's always going like this and chirping like this. Because you know what? They're a coward. They're a coward. They're behind the computer. They talk shit. And they get in their little groups and they feel like they're somebody. Mofo, and you know who you are. You ain't nobody. You ain't nobody. What you do? Nothing. Don't talk shit about the veterans, the guys that paid their dues and that still respect the business and done something. Because I've done something, man. But I'm no better than the Professor Rick Del Santo. I'm no better than the freaking neighbor down the street that might work at Walmart. But I know what I've done. And I've helped a lot of people, brother. I've helped a lot of people. Ask Trooper Gilmore. Ask Big Dog Marino. Okay, I just dropped those two names. Those are two brothers of mine. Those two guys, I helped those. Ask Chris Blackheart. I helped those guys, man. Because Trey, the smooth operator, you know who he is. He had a great career. I got him in with Rumble. He'll tell you himself.
I do. Yep,
We're all in the same business. And the people that never been in the ring and you've never actually got in the ring and taken the bumps and taking the falls and you're not even in the business, shut the fuck up, man. You know? And people put people to do things and they think they're heroes. We ain't no heroes. You're an asshole. And that's all I got to say. You're a big asshole. And like I say in my comedy, there's three different types of people that are assholes, Rick. You'll like this one. There's the asshole that doesn't know he's an asshole. He's just an asshole because he's just stupid, right? There's the asshole that's kind of like he goes out of his way to be an asshole, you know? He's a real asshole because he knows he's being one, right? Then there's the
right.
Then there's the third version of the person asshole. You know what that is? The real fucking asshole. That guy goes way out of his way to be an asshole. Like he just does shit to be an asshole. And no one wants to work with assholes. No one wants to know assholes. No one wants to listen to assholes. You know? So those are my three versions. And at the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, we had a real fucking asshole there.
I hope you're not referring to me this year.
No.
I mean, I was the new guy there.
I was a star in the
there
business. I was a star in the business. I'm a star. I'm just fucking around. I was
there
a
you
star.
go.
You know, anyway, so that was like, no, you were 95% of the audience was beautiful. Joe Bruin did a great job.
We had a great time. I sat there the whole night, New England Hall of Fame, sitting next
your wife is
yeah,
lovely, by the way. Your wife is lovely. I met your wife.
Thank you. I sat there sitting next to the Guardian of Chaos and his wife. And on the other side, I look over and there's DC Mad Dog Drake and Knuckles Nelson sitting on the other side of me. And I'm sitting here like, wow, man, this is awesome. Like, seriously, I saw you beforehand. Barry Horowitz and Mike McGurk were sitting in front of me. Listen, man, Joel Gertner was a little bit across the room. We were sitting with some of the elite, my friend, that evening. It was amazing. And, Slick Wagner Brown, Don Vega, there was some great people there that really made a mark in this industry, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. I agree 1,000%. All those names you mentioned are all pros. It was a really a great gathering, but that's why we don't want to let something so precious to all of us to get together like that, have just a little bullshit kind of make it a little bit of it. But really, you know what? It all comes down to the what it really came down to, and it was really a great event. I ended up bringing a couple gentlemen with me. One was Donald the Driver, and also the original Scuffling Hillbilly from the South. In the early 70s, he worked as a Scuffling Hillbilly. Jethro, the big guy. I don't know if you've met him. He met, and I give a shout out to this guy, Larry Huntley, who works as Cousin Larry. Mm-hmm. What a nice guy, And again, never knew the guy, never had any opinion on him, never listened to anything that anybody said about him because, listen, I want to know the person myself and I want to know the facts. I don't just listen to bullshit, because that's not fair to anybody. And you look like a fucking asshole, like I said earlier. But cousin Larry, Rick, right? Larry Huntley, what a pro. And he's a worker up in Maine. We talked about Tony Atlas, who he's very friendly with. Great guy. Also, the Tokyo Monster. He works for Jimmy
Cahagas. Yeah,
Cahagas. Yep. What a pro!
Yeah.
What a pro to meet him in person. And I first thought he was Pat Tanaka. I said, "Hey Pat, how you doing, brother?" Pat Tanaka. He said, "No, I'm not Pat Tanaka." We kind of laughed about it. Barry Horowitz was there speaking, and we all spoke together. Rick, then I seen you got there a little later, but you got there in time for the ceremony. That's when
I got there right before the ceremony started. Yeah, right before the ceremony started. I I was rushing. I thought I was going to be late because I left my house at 4:30. The event started at 7, and now, mind you, it's a 95-minute drive from where I live. However, of course, you know what it's like waiting for your wife.
So, I remember that. I remember that. I already did that.
Yeah. So luckily the directions that I took there, you put it in my GPS. It didn't take me directly to the highway, which I thought was very absurd. I live directly near the highway, but it took me some back roads to get to 95. I live right by 91. I would have had to go backwards into New Haven, Connecticut, just to go forward to Rhode Island. However, this took me through some back roads, got on the highway out there in the middle of the woods. I got to tell you, the hotel was right off the exit. Literally checked in. I ran downstairs, went to the ATM, walked in, see the GOC. I see you walking around. I'm sitting here. There's Jimmy Allen, James Allen, Trooper Gilmore outside. I was very excited to see him, man.
That's what I was saying.
We finally met it was an amazing evening. I finally got to meet him in person about 2 months ago because he rented the ring to an indie promotion out here. And so, he is a very friendly guy. He saw me because he's been a guest on the show. He saw me. He came right up to me and introduced himself. He said, "What's up, Rick? Good to meet you in person." I got to tell you, man, that guy is probably one of the nicest straight shooters right there in the wrestling business, man. A really good guy.
Trooper Gilmore?
Yeah.
I love Trooper Gilmore. Me and Trooper go way back. See, not everybody understands a lot of the history that a lot of us guys have. You got to remember, when Jimmy come up, he started up a little bit after I did with Rumble, and Rumble put us together. We tagged a couple times. We worked with Bundy a bunch of times in the handicap. And me and Trooper did a lot of road trips together. I got Jimbo over there. Trooper worked over there in Long Island Wrestling Federation for Bobby Lombardi. We worked up there with Tony DeVito, tag team.
Big Mike.
No,
you got Big Mike. Powerhouse Mike, whatever his name is.
No, man. I'm talking about professional wrestling. I'm not talking about guys that move Pete Moss and Cal Manure at Ox Baker's garage. No, hell no.
It wasn't cleaning Killer's or Ox Baker's garage. He was too busy doing that. Yeah.
Tony DeVito and Mike Grimm.
Okay, I actually remember
Mr. Grimm. Mr. Grimm.
Yep.
Tony DeVito and Mr. Grimm, and that was Mike Bell. God rest his soul. So
I remember him. Yeah.
Trooper Gilmore and myself tagged up versus Tony DeVito and Mike Bell. God rest his soul. Mr. Grimm, and he had to make it. And we worked the tag. Every match on the card was either a tag or a 6-man tag. And the big giant, Primo Canary III, was in the Battle Royal. And we did the Battle Royal, and Lombardi took care of us. We got great paydays. We got like $250 a piece. We also got hotel paid for. Granted, the hotel was not in the best neighborhood. It was in the Red Light District, somewhere in Brooklyn. It was at the Martin Luther King Jr. High School. And I also worked on the card was cousin Luke, Richard Hillbilly from the WWF.
Cousin Luke, yeah.
Like I said, DeVito, Bell, Primo Canary, Big Daddy may have worked that. Big Dog Marino from Yonkers, New York, my good friend out there, Big Dog. It's just Jimmy and I got a long history. And just off of the record, I just told him this. We're kind of laughing about it. I gave Trooper that nickname, Troop, way back, and it caught on. Love Trooper. I was happy that he made it. I joke around and everything, but all joking aside, he deserved to get into the hall. Everybody that got in the hall deserved to get in the hall, and that's why we have to protect and preserve the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, the credibility of what it is, and how you speak about it. And we all have to do that to keep that history as time goes on. We really do.
Yeah.
Great event.
And it's very important. We have a very rich history in New England, so it's very important in order to keep that in order. And hopefully, he'll be doing that a lot more. There was rumors that this was going to be the last fan fest, yada yada. But I see him posting that he's kind of wondering, should that actually happen?
Yeah, so, Joe Bruin's got in his blood. It's not the last one, dude. Don't worry about it. It's not the last.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm like. This was very successful. I got to go there. I met a lot of great people. I got to see. The first person I run into is I ran into Curtis Hughes downstairs as I'm in the lobby on my way to the convention. I run into Mike McGurk in the lobby, and then I start running into my good friend Ralph Sergeant Murray, works for PAPW, and Mario Mancini. I saw him down there. All of a sudden, it just starts happening. People are showing up. David Schultz is there. What the hell? Duke the Dumpster Drozy, Victoria from WWE. All these people just start showing up, and it's freaking amazing, man. And it's just, and they all treat you just so friendly. You know what I mean? I got to run into legendary New England promoter, New England Championship Wrestling, Sheldon Goldberg, and tell him what I thought of his promotion, man. And now I'm sure you're very familiar with that guy.
Yeah, man, because you got to remember he's in the locker room with Rumble. He worked side by side with Tony Rumble.
Yeah, that's how he got into it, right?
Yeah. I started with Rumble. It was 1993 or 94. I think it was the end of 93, early 94. I started with Rumble, and I was with Rumble right till he passed, God rest his soul, in 99. And Sheldon was right there. Sheldon was Rumble's right-hand man. He was in the meetings for the different angles, et cetera, et cetera. Sheldon's always been I love Sheldon Goldberg. To
meet him in person was fantastic. I haven't seen him.
He knows his shit. Sheldon knows his shit. He does. I seen him at the last IWF reunion last year, and I hadn't seen him in a while. We talked. Always loved Sheldon. I mean, hey, we're all in the same business, man. Like I said, time goes by fast, and a lot of us go, and you never know when your number's up. When your number's up, and you're gone, and and I like to try to keep the peace with everybody. You know what I mean? Because you never know when the last time you're going to see or speak to somebody. And like I said, when I first started out the podcast tonight with you, Rick, I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying how I feel. I'm just keeping it real again. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm doing. I'm just throwing it out there, keeping it real, whatever have you. And that's just the way I am. I mean, it ain't fucking changing, man. I'm the real deal inside and outside the ring, bro. But I love seeing everybody. It was a great night.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great whole weekend. I got to meet he kind of lives local. That's the funny part, is that I got to meet him for the first time there, is Brian Solomon, who's a former WWE employee, and he wrote the book on the original Sheik. So I had that book. I had him sign my book, and it was really, really cool to sit there and talk to him about the book and such. And I don't know, man. The whole show was fantastic.
It's fantastic. I'm glad you had a good time. To the Professor Rick Del Santo, I don't give a shit what Tom Burke calls himself. You're the professor. You've been the professor since number. You were the professor. I'm just joking around. Come on, man. You can't. These people can't take it. All right, so you
never know. Wrestling fans can. Wrestling fans can't take a joke, right? No, man. Because last time you were here, you attacked me for ripping off Professor Toru Tanaka.
And you know what? Just to put a smile on your face, my brother. That's all I did that for, just to put a smile on your face, man.
I know, man. I
didn't even know you remembered Professor Toru Tanaka. He's a legend. But just so we're talking about
that nickname didn't come from nowhere. I'm just telling you. Anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, but you got to think. Listen, it's okay to be humble. Okay.
Yeah.
But you got to think more of yourself, man. You've done a lot for the business too, and the sport. You have, and you are somebody. You know what I mean? You're somebody. I mean, you've never been in the ring and bumped or whatever, but you're still somebody to a certain level. And a lot of guys respect it. More guys that get to know you. And this podcast has opened doors to a lot of different names. I mean, I sent you Big Ron Shaw. I sent you Brittany Brown. And these people still talk highly about you today. I have no idea why.
Thanks. They are great. No, man, I still keep in touch with both of them, to be honest.
You do. Look, can I, since you got me as a guest, I want to mention. So the Hall of Fame was that Saturday night. So the Wednesday night, I was at
Hall of Fame was Friday.
It was the Friday night. Correction.
Yeah.
The Friday night was the Hall of Fame, the 28th of July. The 26th was the Wednesday. I hosted a comedy show at the Boomerang Roadhouse in West Warwick. Then I did the Hall of Fame induction speech for Rich Lannon, Killer Kowalski graduate referee.
Legendary referee, by the way.
Triple H, yes, Triple H's first match, and Kurt Angle referee. That was Friday night. Sunday night, I did Comedy Park in Cranston, Rhode Island. At the Comedy Park, I did stand-up comedy. This past Wednesday, August the 2nd, I did the Harry Del Casamia restaurant in Rainham, Mass, stand-up comedy. So I basically did the 1, 2, 3, 4 shots in a 7-day period. I was like, I'm probably like a rock star, man. I was like, damn, it's a great feeling, and it's humble to be able to still be involved because those are my loves, pro wrestling and stand-up comedy. My right now, as you know, I'm focusing on stand-up comedy. I do have a booking at the end of the month in August. I'm hosting another show out in West Warwick. I'm also, I think you're going to ask me this. I'm also doing a big show in October, Rick. It's called the Paul Santos Live Show. It's a takeoff of like the Tonight Show, David Letterman show. There's musicians, musicians. There's comedians, and it's shot live. And something about it being on ABC or something. This guy's got a big following. He runs every Monday night live. The Paul Santos Show is a gentleman called Chops, who is another singer, and Paul booked me through Allison Diane. I'm going to be there on October 30th on a Monday night. And the thing is, Rick, is he's a big pro wrestling fan. So he wants to give me he wants to interview me. Like it's a whole different type of interview about pro wrestling, short interview. And then go into like a 5-minute stand-up comedy gig. So I'm excited about that. I'm also, working on a big, small tour, if you will, in New York City in September. I am going to be doing 3 to 5 nights in New York. I haven't told you that, but it's definitely 99% sure it's going to happen. And so I want to do some comedy out there. And who knows? Maybe I'll do the Jimmy Superfly Snuka impersonation again. Did you ever hear that one?
You didn't do it last time, did you?
No. I did it. I did it a few gigs back. I did it over at up in Wakefield, Rhode Island. How when Jimmy and I were at a restaurant after the show, and Snuka was with me. And I love Snuka. I got to work with Snuka. He's a legend. Come on, Superfly Snuka. Yeah, and absolutely. There was a valet there that had a big set, a big rack, and Jimmy was talking with me, and Jimmy was like, brother, only you can do what you do, brother. I said, Jimmy, I'm over here. And he was just like staring right at her tits, like, only you can do what you do, brother. So he wasn't even looking at me. That's the whole story. That's the moral of that story. Rick, you're very sensitive tonight. I'm going to call you sensitive Rick Del Santo.
I'm not sensitive.
I know you get a lot of shit going on, brother.
No, man, this show has been on fire as of late. It's been so freaking busy. And I've had some really great guests as of late. So, and of course, I got Mike Mittman. Exactly. That guy is an absolute legend. This guy refereed in WWF. He worked for the Savolis. This guy was an agent in WWF. He did all sorts of crazy stuff. And like I said, he had some really good stories. And if you go back and listen, he's got a really great Iron Sheik story and a couple other really good ones. And that is probably one of my proudest interviews that I've ever done. I just want to get more views on it. So if anybody wants to go back and check it out, I had the Wildcat Wendell Cooley, who's a freaking legend that it just seems, the legendary Sunny Beach, all sorts of guys. And the rest of the month is going to be on fire, but you can check it out every day here on this platform. So check it out.
I don't miss an episode myself, Rick. You know what I mean? I watch all your shows, brother. You know what I'm saying? Because
thank you.
You're welcome. No, it's enjoyable, especially when you know what I mean. You're just trying to see some real interviews, like shoot a little bit of shoot, right? So, I check it out. Yeah. I watched a little bit Mittman. I got to watch the end of it. I love you when you mentioned the IWF when he worked with Kowalski and Danucci, God rest his soul, and Big Ron Shaw, Sabisco. I mean, I remember those days, and I mean, who can say they did play-by-play with the legendary living legend Bruno Sammartino? Mike Mittman.
Absolutely.
God rest your soul, Sammartino. But no, you really, like I said, I've known you for about a year now. How long have I known? What's going on over
there? Probably about a year. Yeah, it's been about that long. So what do you mean?
Did you just see a ghost or something?
No, hang on. We were talking about Bruno, and
you're looking at something up there.
Yeah, I looked. I had Bruno hanging up here on my wall. I don't know what the hell happened to it. So maybe I moved it. Either way. So, no.
I know
when I was interviewed,
but just so you know, since we mentioned ghost, I have to say something.
No,
since you mentioned ghost, I know absolutely beautiful French Canadian woman. I have the pleasure to know her, and she explained to me she does not like ghosting. Do not ghost people. So I'm doing this public service announcement for her, Rick, on PWZ, Pro Wrestling Zone, with the Professor Rick Del Santo. And I'm telling everyone, please, don't ghost somebody. Don't ghost your neighbor. Don't ghost your friend. Don't ghost your girlfriend. Don't ghost your boyfriend. And surely don't ghost your wife.
There you go.
Come on, that was good, brother.
That was
about my career. You got me here. You may never see me again.
What are you talking about? We talked about your whole career last time. We also talked about, the little buddy.
Really?
We talked. Yeah, man. I dug deep last time. And
about Jamie Dundee. You still
Jamie? Should I talk about that story here? Should I talk about what the hell? Because this is,
I got your Jamie Dundee to do the show, and you told me you don't have to get into details, but you said there was a.
Oh no, I decided that I can go into detail because I'm gonna tell you. While yes, he was a very good tag team wrestler with the in Memphis, and of course he went across the WWF, and this guy right here, the real deal Joel Davis, did team with him down south. While I was trying to bring him onto the show, somebody said, "Hey, man, I don't think that's such a great idea." And I said, "Really? What makes you say that?" And then of course, a clip came across my phone immediately after. Yeah, man, it made me think that he was not a good idea. In several interviews I came across where he's dropping the N-bomb. And if anybody knows me, that's not my style. I don't like to promote hate. My wife is an African-American woman. I will tell you that. So that is one thing that I'm not into, man. This show is not about hate. This show is about love and the history of professional wrestling generally. That's what my show is about. And I just love and that's the only reason why I was interested in having him on until I saw that clip.
And I will let you know, Rick, you made a mature and professional decision. We don't have to get into detail. We know that Blackheart was a little bit disappointed in that.
And I feel bad. Don't get me wrong. I do feel honestly bad about that. So
I mean, yes. It wasn't like you purposely said, "Okay, I'm going to get Joel Davis to reach out to Chris Blackheart, to reach out to Jamie Dundee, and then 2 days later say I thought against it or whatever have you." That's what real friends and brothers do. Little small shit like that, we just let go. Like, okay, it's not a big deal. Why be upset about it? People got to stop sweating the small things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride, man, because the ride ends someday. And keep the peace, love, and happiness. Those are 3 good words: peace, love, and happiness. And when you made your decision, I respect that decision. Just like you respect me too. You have me on your show, and you don't tell me, okay, blah 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 blah. If you gave me all kinds of rules and regulations, I'd say, Rick, I cannot appear. I have to be who I am, and you're who you are, and everybody should be who they are. Yeah. Be real. Don't be plastic. If you're plastic, that means you're fake. If you're fake, that means you're living in a lie. If you're living in a lie, you're weak.
Yeah. And, I don't know how other people feel about that gentleman. I'm sure that, and how if he gets work after that interview.
Hey, man, I lived with Jamie for a while because I was down there. The guy's a madman. I mean, can you picture me and Jamie Dundee?
I mean, you're a little crazy yourself, but but not in a bad way.
But I don't say not in a bad way. Rick, I never use the N-word.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, like I said, man, that's something like, I mean, it's not only because my wife is an African-American woman, obviously.
It's in general.
Yeah, it's in general.
How do you know he wouldn't say it? Like you said, you did the right thing, brother. People are going to look at your shows, Rick, and they're going to see who you bring on. And let's be honest, the more legitimate indie guys and big league guys that you bring in, the more legitimate indie guys and big league guys, but the more people they're going to hit that subscribe button, you know. Just like you have the advertisement of, hey, if you're a pro wrestling fan, I guess there's a newsletter one of your associates has. That's great stuff, man. I mean, and Brian,
it's an organization that's been around for a very long time, the WFIA. I'm wearing a shirt now. It's just recently rebooted. It was not in operation for a long time. Tom Burke is a special advisor. Brad Drake owns a copyright currently. I have some old episodes of the old issues of the newsletter from dating back from the 70s and 80s laying around here somewhere in my office. So it's like, Jesus, do I ever? It's nothing. It's nothing in my collection that, it's stuff that I'm proud of. It's not like it's a very legitimate organization. A lot of fun. It's just to bring wrestling fans together. So I expect, I just want everybody to go click subscribe. It's free, absolutely free. You get a monthly newsletter in your email. I write for the newsletter. So that's another thing. A lot of these interviews turn into good stories for the newsletter, results from the New England area. So, photos that I've taken are in there. So, it's a lot of fun, and Brad Drake does a really good job running it. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Back in the day, since you mentioned newsletters, so anybody that, in the 90s, remember, there was also On the Mat. Gary Lajavin put this on. Oh, I remember. Gary Lajavin ran Green Mountain Wrestling.
Yeah, I remember
worked with Gary. You remember that? Oh, you know your shit, man. Yeah. So Gary Lajavin, Rick, had a newsletter called On the Mat. Not Wrestling Observer that Meltzer had. It wasn't as big, but it was based out of Vermont. It was called On the Mat. Man, I couldn't wait to get that issue. I wish I still had some of those issues. A little pamphlet, similar to what you're doing with the other gentleman now. And like you said, it's free. And back then, it was called On the Mat. And you were waiting for that issue to come out. I mean, there were stories on Scott Taylor, Scotty Too Hardy's was in there. I had been working with Green Mountain, so I was featured a few times in there, and so was in a lot of other names that were working in Vermont at the time. So Gary Lajavin had the newsletter called On the Mat. He started as a fan. He used to go with his dad. His dad was named Paul, and they would go to the pro wrestling indie shows, father-son. Gary Lajavin, when I met him, believe it or not, was my debut for IWCCW in October 25th, 1991. Met him, but didn't really know him. But then I really met him when John McAdam ran the UCW in 1992.
By the way, that's John McAdam. Currently has the podcast Stick to Wrestling, if I believe it's the same guy.
Same guy, John McAdam. 1992, John McAdam starts up this Fedric called UCW, Universal Championship Wrestling, and he ran tapings out of Nashua, New Hampshire. Gary Lajavin, his dad, Paul, would go to those shows. And I really met him at that point. We started speaking, and he said he had a dream. I said, I have a dream. I said, I want to promote my own indie shows. I'm up in Vermont, Newport, Vermont. Back then it was VHS tapes. I gave him a VHS tape. He already seen my work. It was the old phones, and we talked, and he booked me for his first few shows. I won the Mayhem Battle Royal, over the top rope Battle Royal, $5,000 to the winner. In reality, it was $50. I won, but Gary had some great talent up there, and John McAdam had some great talent. Bad Hammer Jones, he came out of Kowalski's, God rest his soul. Davy Jones, Flying Bill Wilcox was on top there as a champion. Freight Train Fulton. They had a manager named Travis Melrose that was a Pee Wee Herman lookalike. Pee Wee Herman just passed away. They used to yell Pee Wee, and he looked just like Pee Wee Herman. Sky King and Pat Ryerson with the Untouchables, the tag team. Ryerson was Bruno Scaletti, and Sky King was, I'm not sure exactly what he used for a name. They were a tag team, a good tag team. Billy Warhawk, who became Nightmare Nick Steele, God rest his soul. We go way back. We tagged up down there. We feuded a little bit down there. He had Warhawk, who became a big star, as Nick Steele, God rest his soul. I knew him and his father, Frank, all in the UCW. 92 was a hotbed. Also working down there, Rick, was Scott Taylor, who worked with Steve Ramsey. They were the Untouchables. Scott Taylor became Scotty Too Hardy, as we know, in the WWF. great athlete from the get-go. He was also down there. So they had quite a bit of talent. They also had down there Orlando West, who became a manager. He works as a manager now. I can't think of his name, but he's a manager now. I can't remember his name, but he's a manager now. And and Chris Cruz was WCW, World Championship Wrestler. Chris Cruz. You know Chris Cruz?
I know Chris Cruz, but I didn't know he worked there. I know he worked for the Savoldis for a short period of time.
And he worked for UCW, man. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what
amazing.
Amazing commentating. And I know that's your forte. You're a great commentator. You do play-by-play for the Indies in the state of Connecticut, and you'll get your own podcast. So I know you can relate to that, Rich. That's why I mentioned it. Gary Laserman had his own newsletter. And if you've been around as long as me, you might remember On the Mat. If not, you probably don't remember it. But great newsletter.
I remember a lot of that stuff. I remember Green Mountain Wrestling. I used to get some of the VHS tapes. And if I remember correctly, probably the earlier 2000s, they became an NWA territory called NWA Green Mountain. So
see, I was out of there by then, but I was in the early years of Green Mountain. And I do want to make this point, and I think you'll like this, Rick, because I consider you also a pro wrestling historian, and you really, really sincerely enjoy learning more about pro wrestling, especially things that you haven't heard about. You're going to know the name when I say the name. Bull Montana. They call him the legendary Bull Montana. He was
there last weekend.
He was there last weekend at the Hall of Fame with a woman that said her name was Bull Montana Jr. Now, I asked her twice, but she went by Bull Jr., so that's what we went with. We took a photo together, the three of us, with the bull horns. Bull Montana came up to Vermont with me. I ended up getting him booked with Gary, and Bull Montana did the bodyguard gimmick. And what Gary had on the agenda during the tapings, as I would do, was called the Real Deal Danger Zone. Something like an off-take of Piper's Pit, something like an off-take of the Paulie Dangerous's Danger Zone, the Real Deal Danger Zone. And we had one, I got to mention this one, Ricky. We had one really good episode that really took off, and Johnny Royal worked a great babyface. Remember Johnny Royal? He worked as the Boston Bulldog with Rip Morrison. Johnny Royal, a legitimate powerlifter from Chelmsford, Mass. I remember Johnny Royal being security in 1992. He would walk the pro wrestlers to and from the ring. He was security in 92 for John McAdam. He later trained with Nick Steele and the others, and he became an indie guy. So Johnny Royal was doing the face. He was really over as a face in Vermont, and he was one of my guests at the Real Deal Danger Zone. So what we would do is I'd ask Royal some questions, and I would tell him to shut up before he answered them. Yeah. And then if he tried to get up, right, Rick, Bull Montana would grab him and say, sit down. And like the third time he sat down, I grabbed my chair and chair shot. Bang, hit Royal, and Royal went down. We had his arms back. And it was great, man. And the fans went crazy. The indie cards back then, Rick, we were jamming. You had 300, 400, 500 people going crazy for this. They really appreciate it. I'm so blessed and so happy that I was part of the era of the 90s. Because I went straight from 91 through 2003 and never stopped. 91 through 2003. I was working almost every weekend, sometimes 2 and 3 nights. 91 through 2003. 2003, I retired, had my daughter in 2005. Then I came back in 2009. I ran 2009 to 2013. That's when I got into MMA, cage fighting in 2010. And I did, I wrapped up my career at that point, But that whole decade, it's just great. And that's why I love doing these shows. That's the reason why when you asked me to come back, I'm surprised I was asked to come back. Usually when I'm on a show once, I'm actually suspended and I never come back again. But you haven't suspended.
And to be honest with you, Joel, you're always allowed back because I got to tell you, first, you're always allowed back because I'm going to tell you this. Your show got some high-ass numbers, so anytime you're always allowed back. That's the number one reason. But it is very entertaining. It's always good to talk to you, sit there, have a great conversation about whether it be wrestling. Like we just said, the New England Hall of Fame and the Fan Fest and obviously We'll talk a little bit about your career and history of newsletters and Green Mountain Wrestling that I had not necessarily known about.
Yeah, and the good thing too is, and the reason why I did, I was happy to hear it, for return, and I accepted this is because I'm thinking, if people are enjoying the podcast, listening and watching, hey, it's a win-win for all of us. Let's all enjoy it, If you're just a fan, or if you've been in the business, or you've been play-by-play referee, or you've been an actual worker, even if you were a ring crew guy, or if you just follow the sport, people get to know. I've had people say to me, even on your podcast, we haven't spoken about it, but on the offside, if I come across somebody that might recognize me, if I'm out like on my own time, my personal time, enjoying a nightlife, the Real Deal Joel Davis nightlife, I have people approach me, and I have people. Oh, you smiling at that one? Yeah, the Real Deal Joel Davis nightlife. That's another story for another day. But I will say, I have people come over to me and they'll say to me, "Hey, we never knew that was Real Deal Joel Davis," because they only remember me, up there in NWA New England, working in all New Britain, Connecticut, Wallingford, Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, Old Saybrook, Connecticut. That's where I met the king of the hot punch, Ox Baker, Old Saybrook, Connecticut. That's where I met your main man, Powerhouse Mike, the guy that moves Pete Moss. I met him. Mike. He asked me for one of the gimmick cards. I used to throw the aces with the picture on them. And Baker, that's when I met him, Old Saybrook. I actually remember that. And he was sitting in the locker room, and Baker said, "Hey, he wants one of the gimmick." I gave him one of the gimmick cards, And that's when he told me about his training. He said, "I'm training to be a pro wrestler. I trained with Ox Baker." I said, "Hey, brother," I said, "what have you done so far?" He said, "So far, I moved Pete Moss. I do cow manure." He says, "I clean up the garage." I said, "Bro, I think you're getting work, man. I don't know." Baker likes that shit. Baker was a funny bastard. I love Ox. And Ox Baker was one of the best heels, bro. And he lived in your state. He lived in your state. I don't know.
He lived in the Hartford area before, up until he died. Yeah. Why he moved to fucking Connecticut is beyond me.
Yeah, I don't know either. But now Baker, a quick story about Ox Baker. I got to guest referee a match. Ox Baker managed, I know you know this name, the Extreme Strongman, Gino Martino.
Absolutely. Yeah,
one of the Millennium Killers that tagged up with Ali Muhammad, Anthony Rufo, the Trouble Man, God rest his soul. They were a great team. But this night it was Martino, managed by Ox Baker, versus the Tough Texan from Portugal, Travis Funk.
I remember. Yep, I remember.
One of the distant, very, very distant, very, very, very distant cousins of Terry and Dory Funk Jr. Yeah. And I was the guest referee, and it was a strap match. So they're working the strap match, and me and Baker had this. I was saying, "Gino, do you submit?" I'm the special guest ref. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing.
Yeah.
You submit, Gino, and I was saying, say yes, and Ox Baker was saying no, and I was saying, does he say yes? And Baker would go no. And then the fans were like, yes, and Baker would go, no. And we had the people going, loved Ox Baker, loved him. But he'd be a character. Did you ever see him when he used to have like the orphan, the dogs that needed homes and shit? You have the dogs. I'll do an Ox Baker commercial that I seen. So here's the king of the hot punch sitting somewhere in Connecticut, right, on a lawn chair. He's got two little puppies, right? And Ox Baker would say, I'm the king of the hot punch, Ox Baker. Donate to this charity. These poor little puppies have nowhere to live. Come on, give some donations. If you donate $10 to these puppies, $1 of the $10 goes to the puppy veterinary clinic in the house for them to live. $9 goes to me. Thank you. My name's Ox Baker. Help these poor puppies out, please.
That's great. That's great.
But no, it's a true story, man.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. So, Joel.
Stand-up comedy, bro. Oh, you got a question?
Yeah. Well, I want you to tell everybody where you can be found. Your stuff is coming up. Tell everybody where what your future appearances are coming up here.
Thank you, Rick. So, coming up next is August 30th. August 30th, it's a Wednesday night if you're in the Rhode Island area. West Warwick, Rhode Island, August 30th. I have the opportunity and the privilege to host the show. So I'll be introducing the comics and also doing my gig, which I'm so happy to have the opportunity. John Parada, thank you. John Parada's Comedy Factory. Always a great show up there. Boomerang's Roadhouse, West Warwick, Rhode Island. It's an 8:30 p.m. show. There is no cover charge, Rick. And that is going to be Wednesday night, August 30th. I will host. I will bring it. You know, if you go to one of the shows, you will see the one-legged whoop whoop. You've seen it live at the Crown Plaza, bro. The one I said, New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Can I get a whoop whoop? And what that whoop whoop is, Rick, I want to explain to you, my brother, because you are my brother. I will explain the one-legged whoop whoop is shoot for the stars. Be who you are. Go for everything you want in life, no matter what anyone says, does, or you hear.
Right.
Go for what you want. I don't care what your sexuality is, what your color is, if you're rich, if you're poor, if you have a health condition, handicap, whatever. Go for what you want and be proud. When I do that whoop whoop on stage, Rick, I tell you, Kingpin, I just feel it. Woo, woo. And you hear the people are getting it now. And that's what that means. There's a meaning to the woo woo. So you're going to hear the woo woo on August 30. Just for that, you should come on down and see it live and in person. Rick Del Santo, the professor, seen it. And you can see it that night. So that's going to be the 30th. Now, going into September, I'm going back to somewhere I love, my brother. It's called New York City. I celebrated my 21st birthday in New York City. My mom and my Uncle Charlie, God rest his soul, my Uncle Charlie looked like Wolfman Jack. Do you remember Wolfman Jack?
Of course, man. That's a legendary DJ.
My Uncle Charlie, who I loved dearly, who treated me like his son. He drove his Harley. He was a mechanic for 39 years. If they did a look-alike contest with, Wolfman Jack, he would have won it. He looked just like Wolfman Jack. Like, hey, Wolfman Jack, you tuning in and walking in you. Come on in, Wolfman Jack, rock and rolling. That was my Uncle Charlie. He would call me at like 6 a.m. to like do something or whatever, and I would hear, let's rock and roll. So it was Uncle Charlie, a Big Baptista, Brian Nelson, Jay Gilmore, and also Louis Toledo. And the crazy thing is about it, only 2 of us are alive. There was 6 people in that limo that night. Yeah, and I was 21. I mean, a few years ago, but I mean, hey, 6 of us, and only me and Brian are the only 2 alive. Everybody else, other 4 have passed away since. We went to New York, and I fell in love with New York City when I was able to party there for my 21st birthday. And I learned something so important in New York. I learned how to brown bag a beer and walk around drinking beer in the public legally, or somewhat legally. Put the brown bag around the beer, you walk with it. That's legally. I learned that legally. Yeah. So I'm legally. There you go, Rick. There you go. So I'm going.
I do that anyways, no matter where I am. Let's just say that. All right. So
I thought you were white Russian man, but maybe you're cheating on the Russian.
You know, the New England Hall of Fame. I got to talk about that with Joe Bruin. I was not able to get a white Russian, Joe.
Oh, so we're gonna have to put that on blast. So New York City
have the cream. Go ahead.
They didn't have the cream. That could be a problem. So we're talking about New York City. There's a little bit of a speculation on if it's 3 or 5 day tour, and I call it a tour. I mean, because it is a tour. I mean,
you're going to be there for a while, so yeah, it's a little bit of a tour. Yeah,
you and I, and I'll put this on blast. I don't have many close friends. I have a lot of associates, but you and I are becoming a little more close friends, so you may know a little more about it going on. I have a lot of brothers, and I love everybody. Like I said on the mic that night, I love everybody. And I wish good for everybody. I don't wish bad on anybody. I wish good for everybody. Right. And when I go to absolutely, and when I go to New York for those 3 to 5 days, I'm sure you'll know a little bit about it. And I like to plaster it on social media because really it's 2023. That's what it's all about. Let's be honest. It's a great platform to advertise and promote yourself. And I'm chasing the stand-up comedy. I'm chasing it hard. I'm chasing it. You know, I'm going 9 months in now. I'm chasing it. I want it so bad. I just really believe that I can really bring some great entertainment to the country if I can get on national status someday. And believe me, I'm chasing it down. And I believe I'm gonna make it. I believe I'm gonna make it. And going in New York, the reason why I say that, because going in New York City, you can be discovered. And you know the thing about New York City? There's no cliques that are going to be like, I'm going to be in, or I'm not in cliques. I don't like cliques anyways, but I'm going to be somebody just coming in randomly with no ties to anyone. And I can be looked at, just straight up looked at. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you work in certain areas, even in pro wrestling or stand-up comedy, somebody may have a little heat with you and they may push you aside if they have a little power, but they have enough power to push you aside and you don't get the opportunity that you deserve. You know what I'm saying? So New York City, LA and New York City.
It happens in wrestling too. It's called politicking.
It does. Politics can go blow. I don't like anything about politics. You know, that's fake. You know, but politics, you know, politic people, they're weak people, and without in politics, they got miserable life, so they feel strong. You ain't done shit. You ain't done shit. You know what I mean? Politics. Right. But so 3 to 5 nights in New York City in September, coming back in October, the Paul Santos live show. It's like a David Letterman show with also like a Tonight Show aspect to it. Live musicians. People come in and they do like tricks with dogs and cats, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And it's live. It's a live show. You'd like it, Rick. It's called Paul Santos Live, and it's stand-up comedians. So they want to interview me about my pro wrestling career, and they want me to do a 5-minute gig on the mic, a stand-up comedy. They did tell me, though, I have to work clean. Working clean. You're smiling. You know what that means.
You able to? Are you able to?
No, I am. I'm going to take 2 showers that day. I'm going to work clean.
Didn't you say, I know, and I think you mentioned something about, did you mention Saturday Night Live to me off air?
Well, the promoter that I work with on a regular basis who gave me my first chance, and I'll never forget it, is John Parada. He does have 2 comedians. One I know for sure, Bill Blur, also Bob Marley. These guys made national status, and they started with John Parada. One of them actually got in with SNL. So there is some kind of a connection. How it come about, I don't know for sure, but it's all about being discovered, brother.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I'm going to make that trip to New York, you know. And for nothing else, I'm going to go there and I'm going to rock the city and give it my all. I like to bring new material, Rick. You know, we keep in contact, you and I'll send you clips. I know you got your son, you got the wife, you're a busy guy, you know, sports with your son, and then your lifestyle and your family, you got the show that you're very busy with. But when you get a chance, I know you check it out. And I love getting the feedback because it's different. Everyone likes something different. Like some people like the story about the neighbor, you know, you're a good guy, turns to fucking asshole. Some people like the stories about the gymnasium. Some people like about the online dating. The woman that I couldn't see from a distance, when she got closer, I discovered she had a mustache. She said that the spa was shut down during COVID. She couldn't get her face waxing. I said, well, that explains it. I didn't kiss her, though. But that's what I got going on. So New York City, 3 to 5 nights. The 30th of August, Boomerang Roadhouse. And October 30th, Paul Santos live show, all booked. And I'm looking at anything else that comes up, you know. I mean, sometimes you get spontaneous bookings, you know.
Yeah. And so tell people where they can find the Real Deal Joel Davis on social media.
Yeah, so Real Deal Fitness and Condition is the Facebook page. And I know I follow PWZ, and I think you follow Real Deal Fitness and Condition.
Absolutely. And you can also, you know, you can find it if you go to my page. I will share, obviously, Joel Davis's appearances here, of course.
Yes.
So,
yes, we'll network together on that and get that out there, because you got to remember, a lot of folks that follow the fitness page, Rick, are pro wrestling fans.
Yes.
And they may not know about your show yet. I mean, they may not for some reason. They may live a.
All you got to do is click that like or follow button, and you get some of the most unique wrestling interviews in this sport. Legends, Indie Legends, New England Professional Wrestling. We are expanding every day. So in contact with people, and this month is going to explode. I'm just telling you that. We have some really great interviews coming up. So, and of course, Joel Davis is coming back in the future. As always, we're going to have him back in a couple months.
Hey, brother, I really mean it from the guts of my heart. You're a good guy. I'm not going to call you a fucking asshole this time. I did that joke with you. Yeah, you're a really good guy. But I feel the good, even on this interview today. I can feel the good, positive vibes, and you're gonna do good, man. You're smiling. You're a good dude, and you're a good person. And just keep it going, man. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean this. Don't let anything derail you. You got to remember, it's pro wrestling. There's a lot of shit going on, man. If I let that shit get to me, I would have never had a career that I had. You know what I'm saying? So, Real Deal Fitness and Conditioning. Check it out. It's a big page on Facebook. Also, YouTube. Go to YouTube. I have 99 videos, bro. Nowhere near what you have, but I have 99 videos now, which isn't bad for a single guy. I mean, it's only me performing. I mean, but with pro wrestling, motivation speaking, stand-up comedy shows, Jerry Springer shows. I was on the Springer show twice in Chicago. Those are on there. If you want to check out the Springer shows back in the day, different television programs. Workout techniques, boxing, mixed martial arts on the streets. I go on the streets. I talk to people about fitness and conditioning. Again, a lot of the stand-up comedy gigs are on the YouTube channel. Go on YouTube and just search Real Deal Joel Davis. That's Real Deal Joel Davis. And 99 videos will pop up, and pick what you like. Check it out. I appreciate giving the shout out. I'll share this once this airs. And we're going to keep on rocking and rolling. That's all we can do, man.
Joel, thank you so much for joining me and today. And, of course, we're going to be in touch and have you back again. Thank you again.
At the end of the day, keep it real, people. It's the Real Deal, Joel Davis. Rick, thank you. Good night.